Panic, pandemonium, people are freaking out. Remax is paying 55 million to settle brokerage commission lawsuits. Why I think this is ridiculous, why I think this whole thing is crazy, where I think we should go with this, we're going to have to go back and talk about the history, we're going to talk about the future, but I'm going to break all this down. My thoughts, I'm going to weigh in on this with as much as I know about real estate in just a minute, cover everything. Guys, it's me, Ozzy Ramirez with the AskOzzy.com real estate team and AEA Realty here in Houston, Texas. And let's go ahead and get into this. So I want us to think about things before we let government, lawsuits, and all this other crap come into play and completely mess shit up, which could cause a lot of problems for a lot of freaking people. So let's get down to it. Why is brokerage and why is agency the way it is? So I'm only going to speak for me in the state of Texas and what I know about the state of Texas. So I've been a real estate agent for 18 years, about 2,500 something transactions closed. And I'm a student of real estate transactions and all that good stuff. So go all the way back to the history. Why are things built the way they are built? So let's look at being a real estate agent. I'm pretty sure that agents in general were not smart enough to all get together and say, hey, let's price fix and let's break antitrust laws for saying this is the way commissions have to be. And let's create buyer agency and seller agency and all these different things. That is not how this stuff happens. People aren't that freaking smart. This stuff typically happens and it's growth out of necessity. So think about when you're going to court, right? You have defendant, you have plaintiff. They're talking about serious things. There's a lot of technical issues. You have someone that is not agreeing with the other side, and it's got to come together. So why in court do you have a defendant and a plaintiff? Why do you have an attorney that represents this side and that side? Why don't we stop all that crap and do no more lawsuits, no more anything? Everything is just straight up mediation. There's only one attorney in the middle of everything, and we don't take anything to court. Nothing goes to lawsuit. Why? Because when you're dealing with a lot of money and a lot of technical issues, legal jargon, when you're dealing with people that have to actually get an idea of the law and how it works, and you have to have judgment, you've got to get people on each side to represent, to help people understand the ramification of their conversations, their decisions, all that good stuff. That's why that works in court. Crazy thing is, it's a very similar thing in the real estate world. We didn't get together and collude. What happened way back in the day is buyers were buying properties from sellers. They were getting screwed over because the seller had already been through the transaction. The seller was usually more sophisticated. Most buyers were not. They were end up in these tough situations, and there were end up being a lot of lawsuits where people are like, I feel like I got screwed over, so I'm going to go sue. Now we have these problems. And it became this thing where people said, hey, I want to be represented. And I want to be represented as a seller, and I want to represent the buyer, and here we go. And that is what I fully believe and what I've studied to see is how buyer representation and seller representation came to be as we know it in the real estate industry. Now we're trying to go through this whole part where it's about commissions and all these different things. So let's talk about this. Why do buyers want to be represented? Why do they want to feel like they're getting taken care of? Well, if you look at a regular real estate transaction, contracts, taxes, mortgage, title, survey, option money, earnest money, inspection, like there's so many different pieces to it that can all go wrong and screw up a deal. And the common person isn't trying to go to school, isn't trying to get their license. They're not trying to learn all this stuff. They just want to buy a house and they want to be protected. And you say, well, Ozzy, why can't people represent themselves? Well, I just talked about people representing themselves just a minute ago and people wanting representation, people not wanting to get taken advantage of. It's like this, we're talking about one aspect of real estate is building a house. There's a lot of moving parts to building a house. There's a million moving parts to building a house. So, okay, well, if that's just one part of it, and if the whole real estate transaction should be easy enough for anybody to not be represented or not have anybody represent them, um, then why don't everybody just general contract and build their own damn houses? Why do we need GCs? You don't need all that crap. But people do it. Why? Because they don't know how everything works and they don't want to be screwed over and they want the job done right and they don't want their house to burn down and all these different things. So it's very similar. Now let's get into the commission world. Why is it that a standard practice or something that you see in real estate is you sign a listing agreement with the seller and that seller agrees in that listing agreement to pay a buyer's agent commission? And I'm going to break this down and I'll be real simple with it. It all boils down to one thing. Americans are not good at saving money. We have had a history of not having enough money for down payment, closing costs, all this thing. So it created this necessity for buyers who are buying a house that need down payment, closing costs, inspection money, even some commission money. They're usually going to get furniture. They got to get their utilities turned on. Like, you add up all these dollar things, and being a buyer becomes ridiculously expensive. And most Americans haven't saved enough, and they don't have what it takes to get that done. Or if they do, they would be so afraid and it'd be such a big risk. They're like, just forget it. I'd rather just rent. And everybody says, okay, well, that's fine. Why don't we just do that? Well, when properties don't sell, market values don't rise. And when market values don't rise, people don't have equity, and the economy begins to shrink and things don't begin to work. Things need to sell and need to transfer from hand with money in order for the economy to keep on moving. And if things aren't selling and buyers aren't buying, guess what? Only the people with money get to buy. And the rich people build houses, rent to everybody else. Rich get richer, and the 80% and the top 20% and bottom 20% will be so separated. The poor will be ridiculous poor, and rich will be ridiculously rich. If you think about it, let's say a basic transaction, a $300,000 to $400,000 transaction. Let's say we're going to estimate about 4 to 5% in closing costs. We're going to estimate 5% in down payment. Let's just say we get rid of a buyer's agent and we only do 2 to 3% on a commission. So right there, we're talking $30,000 to $50,000 that a buyer would need to bring to the table in order to close on a property. I hate to tell you, but the average working class American does not have that money. $30,000 to $50,000 is hard to come by, and you got to get your utilities turned on. You got to do option money, earnest money, survey, appraisal. There's all these things. They're going to want to buy some furniture. They want to decorate the house, like all these things. And now you have maintenance. They come into play, and it makes it very difficult for a buyer to buy. So when the buyers can't buy, things don't move. This whole thing was not created by agents getting together and creating this magic scheme or some kind of mystery. This thing was created out of necessity. And now we have people that they don't like it now and they want to change it. And I totally get that and I understand that. But what I'm telling you is when government starts to get involved and they only look at one part or one half of the story and they don't understand, well, what are the ramifications to what we are doing right here? It can be absolutely devastating to everyone involved. And I want us to be very careful with how this goes forward. But just educate yourself on why it got this way, how it got this way, and what it could mean to us in the future. And all I got to say is, real estate agents, do what you're supposed to do. Be a professional, represent people the way you're supposed to represent, do the best job possible, build your business. You're going to have to do a lot of lead generation, but this is going to work out. If you look at all the things that go into a real estate transaction, a real estate agent is a necessary person within the world and the economy. How it is going forward, I can't predict the future, but what I will tell you is if we're not careful with these $55 million settlements and people suing because of this, that, and the other, we may end up hurting ourselves in a way we did not understand because we didn't look at the whole picture and why things are the way they are before we made these decisions. So that's my way in. I hope this helps. This is just what I've seen. The way I see this all plays out is, you know, we're going to head to a different world. There's going to be a different type of real estate in the future. I know people like me are going to survive because I'm resilient. I'll figure it out. I'm a hustler. But there's a lot of agents who will not make it, and that sometimes happens. But do your best, represent people, but be educated on what's going on, right? This isn't the end all. We're not all dying. It's not, all doom and gloom. There's an opportunity here if you choose to seek it, if you choose to seize it and take advantage of it. So I hope this helps. Love you guys. Have a fantastic day. Talk to you later. Bye bye.